Hi everyone, I'm Dalton Dorné. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at performance marketing firm Tinuiti. I'm so excited to be sitting down with our client, industry visionary, and just total badass, which you guys will soon find out, Kory Marchisotto. She's the CMO of e.l.f. Beauty. During her time there, she has taken them through a brand refresh, smashed TikTok records, in case you are recognizing that music track, and made them one of the most successful beauty brands of 2020. But also, she launched Keys Soulcare with Alicia Keys during the pandemic, which is incredible. So there's a lot of ground to cover, but we got to start with the Jeopardy clip first. There is probably no greater cultural milestone than being a question on Jeopardy. Is that when you knew that e.l.f. had truly made it?
Especially a Daily Double. How many of you actually saw that live? Did anybody see? My phone never blew up so much in my entire life as when that Jeopardy thing went live, and people were like, oh my God, I finally know what you do for a living, and I knew the answer. But I have to say, since taking the job at e.l.f., there have definitely been many moments that struck me like lightning, and this one tops the list.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And after you get past the holy elfing moly, did that really just happen? And let it settle in for a minute, and you recognize that, yes, that did indeed just happen, that's when you put the thinking cap on and say, okay, I got two critical things here that I need to unpack. And the first critical thing to unpack is, how did we get here? How did that even happen? Because I want to do more of it. The second thing is, what are we going to do about it? So let's start by unpacking the first. How the e.l.f. did we get here? And I would say the answer to that one is by knowing where to put the shovel to start digging. 3 years ago, we underwent a brand recharge when I started the company, and we kicked off that recharge with the most important thing anybody can ever do, which is a consumer deep dive. And one of the things that surfaced in our research was that the vast majority of our audience had no idea what e.l.f. stood for. They didn't know if it should be e.l.f. They didn't know if they should say E period, L period, F period. They didn't know. And what we realized is once we told them, they were like, oh my God, I've been using this brand for a decade and I had no idea it was eyes, lips, face. So it just became this incredible thing. And when I looked under the hood, by asking the CEO, because he had been there for years, why did we take eyes, lips, face off the logo lockup? He told me that my predecessor had wanted it to be that way. She thought it was a little old school, so she stripped the brand of the eyes, lips, face and went forward with e.l.f. My marketing hat told me, well, unless you have Nike level brand awareness, you gotta leave the answer key on the logo. So I set out to put our brand name back into the logo and do an entire campaign about what it stands for. And I made it the central part of our recharge. And that translated into three really important things. The first was a new e.l.f. language. And you're gonna hear me drop a lot of e.l.f. bombs. That's what I call them, e.l.f.isms, e.l.f. bombs. They're gonna get contagious, trust me. Write your own, use them, they're fantastic. You also have to translate that into a visual identity, codes, cues, and of course, your very own e.l.f. soundtrack, which you just heard as we came in. So it was this incredible journey where we needed to take all these great pieces and parts that we created and give them surround sound. And that's when we came to Tinuiti to ask them for a little boost. How do we boost this up? How do we translate this into a recharge campaign? But the most amazing thing that happened is that recharge campaign became a cultural movement. People started writing e.l.f.isms to us, letters with creative ideas and campaigns, and the whole thing took on a life of its own. And since that moment, our motto in our office is, let it live on its own, let it become part of the community and the culture, but when you see fire, then you've got to fan the flame. That Jeopardy moment, that was fire. So we said, okay, part two, what the e.l.f. are we going to do about that? So we said, well, this is time to lean in at e.l.f. speed. Jeopardy was at 8 p.m. the night before. By 8:15, we were best friends with Matt Amodio, who at that time was a 25-episode rating champion. By 8:30, we were already bantering on social. By 9 o'clock, Jeopardy was having so much fun watching us two banter with each other about eyes, lips, ears, lips, face, they jumped in on the fun. By the next morning, we changed our brand to ears, lips, face. The whole social world was completely ablaze, and everything took off like wildfire. That Friday, we had our company town hall, which we do every other Friday. We invited Matt Amodio to our company town hall in a Zoom room, and we presented Matt with $8,000. He was not going to lose $8,000 on our part. So what you'll all be very happy to know in this room is Matt decided to donate that money to Dress for Success, to help shine a light on other women. So one of my idols is Scott Galloway. And Scott Galloway said something that I've committed to memory and I use all the time, and it's that the world is not what it is. The world is what you make it. So we made it ears, lips, face.
I love it. Although I did, cringe a little bit when he first said it. I've now grown to love it.
Well, thank God he got it wrong, because if he got it right, it really wouldn't have been that much fun.
That's right. It would have passed. That's right. So when you joined e.l.f., and you just talked about it a little bit, you really recharged the brand into what it is today. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Sure. And when you think about it, you say, okay, it's a crazy amount of work. It takes teams of talented superheroes, as I call them. We're on a rocket ship, we're on the command deck. When you boil it all down, the formula is really quite simple. And the first place you have to start is with your audience, with the consumer. So I call that know thy consumer intimately. Well, how do you get to know them intimately? The first thing is you got to gather as much research as you possibly can. You've got to get under the hood. But you also have to spend time with them everywhere they interact with your brand. That means get on social media, read those comments, understand what emojis they're using. Emojis matter. They say a lot, and a report's not going to tell you that. If they're buying your product in a point of sale, go hang out in the point of sale with them. Watch how they interact with your business. And after you have all this research, you really have to translate that into insights. Most importantly, what problem am I trying to solve for you? How can I better serve your needs? How can I help to improve your life? And then, most importantly, you've got to take those insights and put them into action. And that action means delivering on what matters most to people. So now that you know who your audience is, the next thing you have to know is, who am I? Know thyself intimately. You've got to identify what your superpowers are and be brutally honest about what you have and where you can improve. And the first step there is then, once you know what your superpowers are, lean the e.l.f. in. Leverage what's already working for you. But then also recognize that may not be enough. So go get new superpowers. It's really easy. You go to the superpower store, you pick one off the shelf, and you say, I need to add this superpower to cart. And that helps you determine the relevant path for future growth. Now that you know who your consumer is, you know fiercely who you are, the next thing you have to do is what I call force multiply. Expand your orbit. Don't go at it alone. Build muscle internally and externally. Know what you don't know and find partners who are going to help you fill those gaps. This is all about augmenting your superpowers, making 1 + 1 = 3, making your universe bigger. The elves, we were already pretty damn strong, but when we force multiplied with like-minded disruptors, like the Tinuitians, as I like to call them, because this is all interplanetary universe we hang out in, that's really where the magic happens. It happens at the intersection of two orbits that are force multiplying together. And then the fourth part of the formula, know thy consumer, know thyself intimately, right? Force multiply. Now you can get to the fourth part, which is e.l.f. disrupt. Lead with an infinite mindset. Dream big. Believe that anything is e.l.f.ing possible. And truly set course to go where no e.l.f. has gone before.
I love that. I want to switch gears a little bit because you've done a lot in a short amount of time, really, at e.l.f. But one of my favorite things, having sponsored and attended this conference for many years, is hearing the stories of everyone in the room. They're amazing. How do people overcome roadblocks? How did they get to where they are today? And interestingly, you've talked quite publicly about feeling like you didn't have female role models growing up, and yet you've become an extremely powerful and successful female leader. I'd love to hear a little about your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a troublemaker, my mom will tell you, since in the womb. And being a trailblazer really requires a fire in the belly. And I've had that ferocity since early childhood. And my fire, when I reflected on it as I got older, was really lit by the limitations and constraints that I saw in other women around me. So I decided at an early age that I was going to set 3 very clear intentions for myself. And I've been comfortable as a rebel with a cause ever since that day. The first one was independence. And I grew up surrounded by women who were seemingly trapped. They were dependent on a male head of household, and they were beholden to what I saw as permission. And I remember being a kid, and it was always this happy moment, and everybody was excited to be at a wedding, and I'd be there cringing because I heard the word obey. And I was like, obey? How could anybody obey? For me, it was like literally somebody punched me in the gut when I heard that word. So I declared that day I got home, hey, Mom, I'm never going to obey. She was like, that's fantastic. Let me know how I can help with that. So I started working before I was a teenager, and I realized that having my own money led me to become increasingly in charge of my own decisions. So I said, okay, well then I've got to have a very strong work ethic. And that allowed me to live my mission to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, and self-made. So having the independence is one thing, but the second thing I wanted to do was break the mold. And I love Game of Thrones and Daenerys Targaryen, and her mission was to break the wheel, right? That's super powerful, and that's what I wanted to do in my family structure and break the mold from what I saw as a pattern of conformity around me. I said, I want to change this paradigm. I didn't want to be on life's treadmill, ticking boxes, chasing fairy tales. The hunt for Prince Charming, glass slippers, happy endings, that was circling my orbit, but my mission was to choose my own adventure and to rewrite what I thought was a happy ending. So on the career front, I set out to become a successful businesswoman. I don't think I knew what the hell that meant. I just knew that I wanted to do it. And I knew I had grit. I knew I had determination. I knew I had the work ethic. What I needed was education. What I needed was to surround myself with people who knew things. So I was the first kid in my family to graduate college, the only kid in my family to fulfill higher education, the only one to climb the corporate ladder. And in fact, I had dinner with my mom last night, and she still has no idea what the C-Suite is, what a CMO is. All she knows is that I sell lipstick for a living. So that's what I got last night. You still selling lipstick for a living? Yes, I am, Mom, and it is fantastic. The third part of my formula was never taking no for an answer, and this is probably the most important. So my mom told me tons of great stories growing up about how she faced a series of no's. No, you can't go to college. Women don't go to college. No, you can't have a career. Your place is in the home. No, 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 no. So she was going to be my fiercest motivator to get to a yes. No was never going to stop me. In fact, no became my fire. Just tell me I can't. Just tell me I can't, and I will show you that I can. So by making these clear intentions at a very young age, lit by the fire and the world I saw around me, and wanting to be independent, break the mold, or be like Daenerys and break the wheel, and never take no for an answer, that backstory led me to where I am today, which is my most critical thing that I want to do is pay it forward. Empower women, and support their rise by shining a spotlight on their journey.
I love that. One of my favorite things about e.l.f. as a brand and you guys as a company too is that it goes so much beyond just the words and it really is action, from having female leadership to having diversity at the table and all the ways that manifests itself in action. And I found it so interesting when you partnered with Alicia Keys, because I'm curious, she talks very openly about supporting women. How did that shared value help you guys come together?
So Alicia's had a desire to get in the beauty space for years, and for those of you who don't know, she had a really difficult struggle with her skin. She had chronic acne, which led to high levels of insecurity, which led her to cover it up with a lot of makeup, and then as a performer, you go under heavy lights, you sweat, and you're just exacerbating the issue nonstop over and over. She also felt that these unrealistic beauty standards that were thrust upon women for decades were doing more harm than good. So she had a desire to get in the beauty space for years and shine her light and help other women not go through the types of struggles that she went through. But she couldn't find the right entrance door. She was looking for kindred spirits, and as a spiritual viber, what mattered to her was finding people who had divine alignment, people who were a reflection of her own purpose and her own values. So Desiree Perez, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Rock Nation is Alicia's agent, she went in search of finding the right partner for Alicia so that she could eventually enter into the beauty space. So our CSuite, and I love that you guys know what CSuite is, we went to the Rock Nation offices, we had a presentation, we had a pitch, we had a plan. As you can imagine, it was like 100 slides deep. And when we rehearsed, our chief people officer had this incredibly dense slide that had a whole lot of stats about who we were, the genetic makeup of our company, so on and so on and so on. And the advice I gave him during rehearsal was, this slide is super heavy and very important, but just focus on one thing. Have a relentless focus on one stat. Focus on our board of directors. You see, at e.l.f., we are one of 25 publicly traded companies out of 4,000 who has a board of directors that is over 60% female and 40% diverse.
Amazing.
So that's what he focused on. At the end of the meeting, Desiree got called out by Jay-Z. I can't even believe I can say those things out loud. And she had left behind her notepad on the table. And we're walking around cleaning up the table and, packing up the dog and pony show. And I glimpsed over at Desiree Perez's notepad. And out of the 100 slides we presented, that is what she chose to write down. That this company was a majority female board of directors. That this company put women in the highest seat of decision making. And we were advanced to meet with Alicia because that's the mirror image she was looking for. And the rest is history. I think the most important thing for me in that moment was recognizing the depth of importance of living your values. A lot of people want to speak them, they want to put them up on the walls, they want to hang them on the mirror, but that doesn't mean anything unless you actually live those values. And at the end of the day, what I realized was Alicia wasn't really looking to launch a beauty brand. What she was looking for was to change the face of beauty with partners who were a mirror image of everything she holds dear. And I love that we just talked about the power of words, and you guys all have this box on your table, but the power of words is incredible, and I think it was words lead to actions which lead to attitude. And that's what we're trying to do with Keys Soulcare, is use the power of words so that they lead to action, so that they lead to attitude. And that attitude is loving yourself. So I'm just gonna read this to you. These are Alicia's words, and they're so magnificent. You are a masterpiece, a magnificent canvas in all your uniqueness, one of a kindness, vulnerable rawness, eloquence, insistence, powerfulness, patterns, complex and divine, priceless. I see you, beautiful masterpiece. And what she wanted everybody to know is that you are, in fact, a masterpiece. And everywhere in this brand, you will find beautiful words that help you love on yourself. Everything you want to be, you already are. You're simply on the path to discovering it. And we spoke a little bit before about affirmations, and this is a crucial component of the brand as well. Ooh, this microphone. And you'll notice that on every offering, we don't call them products, we call them offerings, there's an affirmation. And this one in particular, which is in your box, is you love yourself as you are. So what we are doing with Keys Soulcare is really working to get people to know that they are enough. You are already beautiful, spectacular, fantastic, masterpiece. We just want you to shine at full wattage and show the world. So I'll just share with you a little video that'll give you the perfect idea of what we're trying to do to change the face of beauty.
I praise my body, and I really respect it.
My body's a rainbow of shades of melanin.
This body is the only person like this.
I love my double chin. When I'm smiling, it's there. I love the way I feel when I'm happy.
Thank you so much for showing me how even in my stretches and growth, it's all been so beautiful. I love you, body.
That's beautiful. I'm sure I am not alone, yes, in getting goosebumps when you were telling the story about the one thing that was written down on the pad. I mean, it gave me chills, but there's 300 pads on the tables in front of everyone today. What would you hope people have written down?
I'd say the first thing is find your superpowers with curiosity. The second thing is unleash those superpowers with courage and conviction. The third thing is shine them at full wattage, all the way up, turn it as high as you can. And probably most importantly is use that light to ignite the path for others.
Thank you so much, Kory.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.